I never imagined my son's first breath would happen inside an elevator, but life has this strange sense of humor. And that morning, it decided to make my family the punchline. It was December of 2012 in Tacoma, Washington. My name is Katie Thacker. I was 28 years old, and I was pregnant with my second child. My first labor had been long, controlled, and in a delivery room. This time, I figured it would be the same. I was wrong. It started just after midnight. I woke up with what I thought were mild contractions. The kind you can breathe through, the kind that give you plenty of time to get your bag, your shoes, maybe even brush your hair before heading to the hospital. Chris, my husband, was still half asleep when I nudged him and said, "I think it's time." We moved slow, casual even, because we thought we had hours. By the time we got in the car, I was gripping the dashboard with every contraction. They were coming fast, too fast. We pulled into the parking lot of St. Joseph Medical Center at around 3 in the morning. The air outside was bitter and cold, each breath hitting my lungs like ice. Chris jumped out first, grabbing the hospital bag, and I followed, more like waddled, toward the glowing entrance. Inside, the lobby was silent, the kind of stillness only hospitals have in the middle of the night. No nurses rushing by, no patients in wheelchairs, just the distant hum of fluorescent lights and our hurried footsteps. The maternity ward was on the 4th floor, one elevator ride away. The doors slid open with a soft metallic sigh, and we stepped in. Chris pressed the button. I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes, telling myself we'd be upstairs in seconds. The doors closed, the elevator jolted, and then everything stopped. Not slowed, not hesitated. Stopped. At first, we just stood there, frozen, waiting for it to start again. But it didn't. Chris pressed the button again. Nothing. He pressed every button. Nothing. He slammed the emergency call. A calm voice answered, telling us they'd send help. But as the next contraction gripped me, harder, sharper, stronger, I realized something. There wasn't enough time for help to arrive. The air inside that elevator changed instantly. It felt closer, heavier. The hum of machinery was gone, replaced by my ragged breathing and the faint echo of our voices bouncing off the steel walls. I gripped the handrail behind me, my knuckles white. Chris crouched down in front of me, eyes wide but trying to stay steady. "Katie," he said, "you're gonna have to push." The voices outside were getting louder now, muffled shouts from nurses and maintenance workers trying to force the doors open. But the baby, our baby, he wasn't waiting for anyone. My body was on autopilot, each contraction stronger than the last, forcing me down to my knees on the cold floor. I remember the dim glow of the emergency light. It turned the whole scene into something unreal, like we were trapped in a movie. My hands gripped Chris's shoulders so hard I thought I might bruise him. The metal walls seemed to lean in, the air thick, the smell of steel and sweat surrounding us. I pushed. I screamed. The sound ricocheted around that elevator until it didn't sound like me anymore. One push, two, and then the cry. The most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my life. My son, Blake Otis Thacker, was born between the 1st and 2nd floors of St. Joseph Medical Center, wrapped in the trembling hands of his father. His skin was warm and slick, his face scrunched up and red, his tiny mouth already announcing himself to the world. But we weren't done. The cord was still attached, and we were still trapped. Chris yelled through the narrow opening where the doors had been pried apart an inch. The nurses on the other side shouted instructions. Somehow, and to this day I don't know how, Chris managed to crouch low enough, part of his body dipping into the dark gap of the elevator shaft, to grab the scissors they passed through. His hand shook as he cut the cord right there, in that steel box with our newborn crying in his arms. Minutes later, the elevator lurched to life, jerking upward. When the doors finally slid open, it felt like stepping into sunlight after a storm. Nurses rushed in, their faces a mix of disbelief and joy. They wrapped Blake in blankets, checked his tiny chest, and declared him perfect. As they wheeled us to the maternity ward, one nurse laughed and said, "You made it all the way to the hospital and still didn't make it to the room." And in that moment, I realized how absurd and miraculous it all was. Later, Lying in the hospital bed, Blake nestled against my chest. Chris leaned down and whispered, "That's one hell of a birth story." And he was right. This wasn't how I pictured it. It wasn't clean or calm. It was cramped, chaotic, and terrifying. But it was also ours. My son's first minutes in this world weren't in a delivery suite surrounded by sterile equipment.